Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. If it's Friday, it is the CEO series where we bring together the most phenomenal people from across the globe to walk you through their career journey. And today, I'm really honored to have a friend that I've known for years and years and years, and we've kind of met online. And she is a superstar as it relates to executive search. And Julie Biber is the recognized leader in executive search and succession with many years of experience in shaping talent strategy across industries. She built a reputation at Edelman, where she redefined global executive recruitment and worked with world class clients such as Hilton Knowlton, Weber Shandwick, and other top firms. Today, as CEO of JBR Executive Search and Succession, she partners with organizations across the globe, from healthcare, biotech, technology, financial services, connecting transformative leaders with high-profile brands, delivering progressive, diverse succession strategies, and protect reputations and drive growth. That's a whole lot, but you're a super. This is what happens when you're a superstar. You know what I mean?
You're so kind. I think I need to talk to you every day, Ron. Thank you for that intro.
Well,
Seriously, go ahead.
you know what I say. We've been knowing each other a long time. When you were at Edelman, and we kind of always would connect over the social side. And now you are into the executive search. You kind of pull away from the corporate side, and now you become an entrepreneur. So walk us through that journey. Give us kind of a snapshot of what that looked like from doing all the amazing work you were doing, and now you're entrepreneur and you're building up an executive search portfolio. Walk us through that.
You bet. As you say that and as you describe it, I just kind of sit back and go, "Oh, this is really happening." One of those things to, pinch yourself of a dream that's come true of what I've always wanted to do. But, it started somewhere. The career story started somewhere, and I think back to my college days, and nobody ever really goes to college to become a recruiter.
Yeah.
It's one of those aha moments that I had when I decided not to go to law school. I think it was always my father's dream, and telling all the relatives at the family reunions, the daughter is going to be the lawyer and the son's going to be the doctor.
Yeah.
That's okay. But, I decided not to go to law school and started at General Motors in a marketing role that was rotational back in the day. And I remember sitting in the lunchroom cafeteria and seeing, like, the job board that said seeking an MBA recruiter for General Motors. And I looked at that and I thought, that's what I want to do. I always admired the people who were at the, representing companies at job fairs, and thought that would be a really cool job. So fast forward, interviewed for it. I was blessed that I landed the opportunity. And then I had to move to London in the mid to late 90s. And I was a bit unsettled, and I thought, I might go back and get a graduate degree. I wanted to start having a family, which I did. I had two of my four children in London. And then I interviewed at a search firm, and it was an IT engineering recruitment firm right outside of London. And I pitched to three of the partners that I wanted to start an arm of PR recruitment, and
Mm.
they agreed, and I started, and landed, very grateful, landed 5 to 6 clients. One of my clients was Edelman, and they were
That's
my
out.
main client. Edelman, in the world's, largest independent communications firm, beloved place for sure. And they were my main client for about 3 years. I then moved back to the States, and they offered me a job to be one of their very first recruiters. And I started Chicago. Oh, one thing I want to note here is I worked from home. This is in the late 90s. So that was
Whoa.
somewhat of an anomaly.
Groundbreaking.
It was, I just said, you know what, you'll laugh at this, Ron. And this will show my seasoned background, or tenured, I should say. Um, I said to the stakeholders when I met with the Edelman leaders in Chicago, I'll never forget, it feels like yesterday, but it wasn't. And I said, all I need is a phone and Yellow Pages, because we didn't have LinkedIn at the
Ooh.
time. And I said, I can go after anyone and I will get them for you. I will find the right talent. And we took a 6-month trial of me working from home at that time in 1998. And then it went on for 26 and a half years. So it went on until December of last year, whereby we parted ways very amicably. Edelman was very good to me, helped me build my brand over the years. And that's where my journey has gotten me to today over the last 7-ish months, opening up my own firm of JBR Executive Search, which I
Mm,
do VP and above as well, in
yeah.
other roles. But I'm humbly proud. So that's in a snapshot, the journey of where I've gotten to today.
Wow. So global experience, interview with a client sees something, decides to bring you in, and you started. And you threw me when you said the yellow pages. I was like, whoa, I remember the yellow pages. So
I know
that's
if we talk to some of the millennials, they'd be like, "Yellow pages, what are you
yeah.
talking
What
about?"
you've got to explain? What is a yellow page? Anyway, that's a whole different discussion. So was it easy to make the transformation to walk out of the door on Friday? Thank you very much. Long career, and then I'm going to flip. Now I'm running my own firm.
That's a great question. Thank you for that. I don't want to say it was easy. I always had the entrepreneurial seed that was germinating in my mind for years. It goes way back to where I pitched it to the stakeholders in London. Never forget that day about what I wanted to build out the arm of PR recruitment at that firm.
Yeah.
It was Edelman became family to me. They were my second family, and they always will be. In that
Hmm.
being, a fabric of the firm. But I had to take a beat. The I got a big basket from my children the day I told them I was leaving Edelman that was filled, the family support that I have with all kinds of wonderful things. But I took December for holidays. January was more of getting the itch, talking to a lot of people, receiving the advocacy that I needed as well. I knew I wanted to do it, and so it was, why not? Let's dive in. I've always had that. Perseverance is my favorite word,
Hmm.
and I just was like, I'm going to try this, and I'm going to dive in, and with the support, and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to fall back. I'm going to take the 2 steps forward and be okay with that. So when people ask how it's going, I say, it's overwhelmingly great,
Okay.
but there's overwhelming in that, some of the hard pieces of it.
Yeah.
It was a breakup with Edelman. And, again, in a way of you're somewhere 26 and a half years. That's a long time.
That's a
You don't
long
see
time.
that.
That's a long marriage.
It was sort of like that was a very long marriage. But so many wonderful memories, and grew me into the practitioner whereby I'm still growing for sure every day.
Hmm.
As we had a little technology snafu for everybody listening
That's
in
okay.
big
This is
part, but I'm growing, and it's one day at a time.
yeah. It's one day at a time. Anytime you make that move, and make the separation. So you talked about you started working doing this, and then you moved to London. That was a jump because back during that time, people weren't doing global assignments. But you said, let me explore. So do you
Yes.
look at the transformation from the Edelman piece? Let me explore this new opportunity and see what's happening out here.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I would say is I hear myself saying blessed, grateful. When I look back over time, there is no price tag that you can put on a network, right? Just as
Mm,
you and I have been in touch for so much over the years, and we know so many individuals in common, but really blessed with the network that grew through the years. That,
hmm.
when I launched my firm, the outreach that I had from people was just so it was wonderful. And, some of my clients right now are Edelman alum. Some
Hmm.
of them are people who are on a short list and finalists for some roles with Richard Edelman, or, other key, roles that we had. Some of
Hmm.
them, it's just word of mouth.
Yeah.
So my list of clients is diversified with agency as well as in-house corporate. And, I'm just thinking through a lot of them right now, and it's a lot of fun as when you
Flashbacks, right?
introduce me.
Flashbacks.
Yep.
Yeah, flashbacks. Um, So when you look back on the steps you took in trying to make that transformation and the learnings that you received from that, walk us through. You talked about networking because I think that's something that people will realize. People have asked me, how do you find out people to be on your show? I said, because I've known them a long time. I've always been a pretty good networker. Walk us through why networking is important.
Networking is important. From now, if we had my children on this show, they would say, yes, mom, we realize that even on an airplane talking to somebody next to you, you never know the seeds that you'll set, right? But networking to me is, I've always found people so interesting.
Yeah.
But being a, you don't even have to be a master networker. It's the importance of starting at, a young age. And now with all the technology and social sites of building your LinkedIn and just, breaking through a fear as well,
Hmm.
as, I don't want to reach out to this CEO at this company. He
Yeah.
doesn't have time to give me an
Yeah.
informational, those types of things. So I look at networking as have fun with it.
Yeah.
Break through, find ways to get yourself front and center so that you're noticed, so that your value prop is brought forward, and you never know what will come back. I never thought today I'd be sitting here talking to you, throughout
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
conversations through the years, but really networking in whatever that looks like. Um, don't be afraid to also, I look at tapping into people. Like, if you want to get to Ron Thomas but you're not directly connected to him on LinkedIn, but somebody that is, go through, go around and find those connections.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, everybody loves to connect for certain
Yep.
things in life, whether it's something business, something, a global move. My connections of making the move, I spoke to a lot of confidants. I spoke to a lot of trusted
Yeah.
individuals that took this leap. I want my eyes wide open. I wanted to, what are some of the areas that I may find challenging?
Hmm.
How do I, get through those harder days that most of my days thus far have been, this is great. I know I love what I do. I'm going to
Mm.
keep the pace. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to find
Yeah.
balance. I'm going to have fun. But some days I miss a little bit of the camaraderie of being in house
Yeah.
somewhere, as I
Yeah.
was, to your point
Mhm.
of, that's a long marriage of 26 years.
It is. It's kind of like having a great divorce, if there is such a thing.
It was,
You
yes,
know,
very amicable.
yeah, having a great divorce. The key point. And I think about networking because I'm a big networker on LinkedIn, Facebook,
You are.
and I will always, if I see an article that someone has written, I'm gonna if it kind of moves me, I'm gonna comment on it, and I'm gonna let people know that. And I think lots of times in people coming up, because my daughter is adverse to networking. She said, I don't feel like doing that. That's it. You know what? You have to build out a network of people as you grow your career, because as it moves up, you spread your wings and you look to see what's beyond.
You know what? I always say, what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? In fact, I was in when I was in London, well, not recently, a few years ago with my daughter visiting. And I remember we were walking by a restaurant, and she looked in, and it was some influencer, some foodie influencer. She's like, Mom, that person's in there. I didn't know the name.
Yeah.
And I said, go in, and, no, I don't want to bother. And I respect that. They're there with family, what have you. But I said, you never know. Like, just go in. And she did. And she was so grateful that she did that.
Hmm.
But that's just an example of, like, your daughter. And I respect the fact that some people may not feel as assertive to
Hmm.
just approach someone.
Yeah.
But to my point earlier, there's so many different ways of networking, commenting
Hmm.
on individuals' articles, podcasts,
Hmm.
connecting with various influencers. Again, you have nothing to lose. I always say, be bold, be
There you
bold.
go. I see. I think this is your daughter, Brooke Biber. Is that your
Yes, it
daughter?
is, Brooke. Yes.
She just said her name was should have Kale up or whatever it was. She gave the name of the influencer,
There
in
you
doing that.
go. There you
Yeah.
go.
So
So
Brooke, my
yeah.
daughter's the same as you. She said, "No, we don't bother." I said, "I don't care. I don't care what you say." Because my father always told me. She said, He said, always ask for anything you want. He said, because they either say no, yes, or maybe. Maybe you got a shot. If you don't do it, it's not going to work beyond that.
I agree. And you know what? We need the no's in life, right? We need
Yeah.
the adverse reactions to things to maybe there's a learning from it. Maybe it's your aha moment whereby that wasn't really meant to be. So therefore, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm. So moving along, what is the when you look at the transformation, what was the most formidable challenge that you have faced, and how did you navigate that? Because sometimes you're faced with these things that, oh my goodness, how am I going to get through this? Can you
well,
share? Kind of
yes. Are you speaking of a formidable challenge throughout my career?
career kind of approach. Yeah, this is what we concentrate on. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, when I look at some of the challenges in my that no one loves to face a challenge, right? But it's also it really parlays to what I just said in that if you don't walk through it, the adversity or the challenge and hit it face on, um, I'm gonna speak to a couple of them in my years at Edelman that helped me grow as a practitioner and professional, and then I'll close on a formidable challenge with moving on as an entrepreneur into my own
Yeah.
firm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, one of those is I'm a big proponent of diversification in hiring. So, at Edelman, it was we're not going to hire like for like. We really need, look at all the differences, et cetera. Well, I also needed to look at that when it was close to home for me, whereby, there was a point in time when Edelman had hired a very senior leader that I reported directly to, and we complete opposite. I mean, I am the art side of art and science. She was definitely the science side of it, and
Yeah.
coming with a background that she did. And I was fearful. I was, I'm not sure if I really want to dive into insight and data, but I knew I needed to keep growing because the world revolves around that, right, to help inform
Hmm.
decisions. And what it was at my core, being honest with myself, I was fearful of maybe, this is just an area as um my career was my role, as it were. I need to learn. I need to be okay with saying, raise my
Hmm.
hand. I know I've been around for 20 plus years. I don't understand this. So
Yeah.
where can I get help? Um, Reverse mentorship. I know, we'll speak about mentoring, but I reached out to reverse mentors, help me understand the importance of, and then I started to really like it. But leaning into the difference of, um, that was a challenge, but I brought it on myself, whereby in the beginning it was, she's looking for these data and the charts and all of these different things, but I had to lean into it and become creative in that if we didn't have certain technologies, how do I get this? How do I
Hmm.
get to point A to Z and also be okay delivering that information? So my point on that was she wasn't the challenge coming in. I created that
Yeah.
challenge in my mind of this isn't like a usual hire that we would make for this type of role. But I completely understood why the organization did that. And I learned so much from
Yeah.
her and the situation because I leaned into it.
Mm.
That was one. The other one was, a lot of us face so many challenges in different ways with COVID, right? And I remember the days when COVID hit, and our global CFO and Richard Edelman, our global CEO, said, nobody knows if the economy is going to be, a U shape, a V shape, an L shape, what it's going to
Yeah.
look like. So unfortunately, recruiters get hit at times like that and have
Yeah.
to go on furloughs because the needs of the company become
There's
restricted.
nothing there. Yeah.
And so a lot of our recruiters unfortunately had to do that. Therefore, me and a few others needed to really wear more hats. You know how you wear a
Yeah.
lot of hats in different roles. We had to wear a lot of them for a little while. But we completely rebounded, and we were hiring recruiters back fast and furious, in a very good way. But it was the challenge of really sitting back and saying, you know what, we that were there during that time are taking on a lot of new roles to recruit for different. We can work 24/7, which is not healthy whatsoever. Never recommend that.
Hmm.
And it's not really a true statement, but you get where I'm going. And
I
it was,
understand exactly.
it was a challenge, but it was also, we found ways to huddle, have fun with it, learn through it, support one another, but also be okay to talk to leadership about
Hmm.
saying this isn't okay anymore.
Yeah,
We
the
can only
voice.
do so much, and having that voice to be okay to express that. Now, the
Mm.
last point I'll make is formidable challenge. I love the word formidable. Um, I need to lean into a lot of different. I'm right now. I'm a one woman CEO. I
Hmm.
have a lot of help from my family in that my children are master. They're my group of technology experts.
Yeah.
Um,
Hey, Brooke.
exactly. Yes, yes, and yes. And they're so helpful. But I have a few recruitment colleagues that I've worked with before that have leaned in, and they've supported. They've sent candidates my way. We're working out ways in which to partner with one another. So I have some
Hmm.
some formal. But the challenge is, when you're a one person show, you're doing soup to nuts, right? And
Everything.
it's administrative. It's so becoming organized is my 20, well, I said 2025 New Year's resolution. It's definitely going to be into my 2026 of just really finding ways in which to organize myself with the wonderful clients I have. And it's really, like I said earlier, pinching myself. This
Mm.
is real. This is really happening. So
Hmm.
it's good.
Hmm.
It's all good. Challenges are good stuff.
Yeah, it's good stuff, and you're able to navigate that. And when you started out, you built a year a tenure of 20 some years. You probably never would have thought that, but and then you made the decision to move out. And being an entrepreneur, trust me, starting out is formidable. You have a lot of issues that you're dealing with, challenges you're dealing with, but you were able to stay grounded. So one of the questions I want to ask: how do you handle those days? And we all go through that as entrepreneur because there's no paycheck that's coming in
Hmm.
at the normal cycle. How do you handle those days when you say, I just don't feel it today?
Oh,
Some
I
of the days,
have those.
some of the
You
days
know,
I go to that, and I come, regardless of where last week I was in Birmingham, and next I'm leaving tomorrow, and I'm headed back to Dubai. I mean Dubai, and then I go to Saudi Arabia. And then some days you wake up and say, I don't feel it today. How do you
just don't
handle that?
feel this. That's a great question. And I just as you are, I feel your energy. I feel the positivity always. But there are days that the energy reserves are just not that high,
It's depleted.
and I play the tape forward in that it's whatever's going on, whether it's from I need better nutrition of something, or I need to reach out and speak to family, just something, reading inspirational things. I know that sounds cliche, but I find I'm very, very close to my family. And it's, getting, speaking to my dad every day with my children. One of them will just make me laugh with his rendition of the Budweiser, what is that commercial where it's the "was up," something like that. I don't do it as good as he does. But when he does that, it just turns over. And I
Yeah,
know that when
yeah,
I play
yeah.
that tape forward,
Mm,
that within an hour it'll spring back, but I do have to step away.
yeah,
That is so important to get out of my head, in that people talk about workaholic, people talk about that 24/7, and when you really love what you do, which I do, um you can I found myself in that place often, and it's not always healthy. So it's
I know.
step away, and it's, watch, put Bravo on TV, whatever that is, to just get your energy reserves back. But they usually
Yeah.
do turn around. But it's also being honest with what's going on, right?
Mhm.
To
Mhm.
find that, what is it, and reaching out to the right mentors, the right people to help build back that it's going to be a good day.
It's gonna be a good day. Yeah. So I just want to recognize some people. I recognized Brooke earlier because I saw the name there. Peter Piccinini, who listens in every Friday. He always sends me a note. He says, "Great way to start the weekend." He started. I mean, he is a long time friend. He was in the theater and the arts in New York City, and now he's in wealth management. So you look at these transformations and doing these kind of things.
That's
Uh,
wonderful.
yes, so Sharafuddin, he says, 26 years at Edelman, truly inspiring. Receive any advice and insights that you'd be kind enough to share, which you've been doing. Grady Bland says good morning, and Grady is a listener also. He says network is important for success in any venture. Building that up. Brooke, we've done you okay. Jim Moy was my neighbor in Saudi Arabia when I lived in Saudi Arabia. We lived next door to each other. He doesn't
Wow.
like for me to say this, but he's a big shot attorney in Washington D.C. One of the big people in the legal profession. And but he was my next door neighbor, networking, and we built up a relationship beyond that. Abid says true. Just approach and ask people. And Alexa, the oldest, I don't
Lucan.
know.
Lucan.
Okay, yeah, okay. So this is one of the reasons we do the show is because when you look at LinkedIn, you see people doing all these amazing things. You have no idea what they've gone through to get there.
1,000%.
1,000%.
Everybody has a story.
Everybody has a story, and this is how we started with the show, to have people to walk through that, because it's not as easy as it looks. Everyone has these stumbling blocks in trying to build it. So you mentioned mentors. I'm sure you've been there 26 years. I'm sure you had people, a sounding board. Let me run this by you. Give me some feedback as it relates to that. And then you're probably flipping it now. People look at you and say, oh my God, how can I become an entrepreneur? How can I do? Walk us through
Well,
that.
well, I will tell you, mentorship is one of my, like, when I talk to people, when I speak to students at schools, when I'm asked to do other speaking events such as what I'm on today, um, I'm always encouraging and influencing mentorship. So
Hmm.
when I was at Edelman, in wanting to always, so we Russell Dubner was our U.S. CEO, a long standing practitioner at Edelman, and he used to always ask people in an interview, "How do you remain a student of the business?" I stole that from him, by the way. I think that's such a great
Mm.
question. And one of the main, responses that came to my head was, mentorships. And I am going to select a mentor based on areas of skill, competencies that I know that I need to get stronger in. I mentioned earlier the data science insights. Who do I go and ask? And it's not always a mentor who has 5 years more, experience than you. Reverse mentorship, to me, that was as key, integral, asking somebody who has maybe 5 to 10 years. So I'll give a perfect example. This is funny. So when Twitter was coming out, and all the social media, I remember asking somebody a bit junior to myself, to be my mentor. Help me understand. I know that within recruitment and networking, I need to know about, Twitter and how many words you can post. And he sort of laughed. He's like, "You're asking me to be your mentor?" And I said, "Oh, I am." But it's also important to set a framework of, what does that mentorship mean? Because that's
Yeah.
the first question. Are we meeting once a month for coffee? I would always have like 3 bullets put together of going into those meetings of, here's what I'd love to get out of it. I remember asking a global chief corporate officer at Edelman. Every 6 months, I would look for a new mentor, by the way. And I would ask him, or I asked him to be my mentor. Great man. And he started laughing. He's like, what are we going to do with this? And I said, I want to learn more about the business of Edelman. I,
Yeah.
the foundation, the 101, what I'm privileged to learn about through you, because you're an expert in, you sit on the executive committee here. But the reverse mentorship, as well as other mentors, are so critical. But it's also important to have, you can tell I feel like I'm speaking fast, so I apologize. I get very excited about this topic.
That's okay. That's okay.
Also important to have mentors outside of the industry, the business that you're in that, I have a long-standing mentor, and I'll always call her that. She was at Edelman. Her name is Claudia Patton, and she led the Atlanta office. We acquired her firm back in the day. She went on to be our global chief talent officer. And she just had this way about her that I would sit in meetings, and I'm looking at a picture in this room I'm in right now. It says peace. It does not mean to be in a place where there is no noise, trouble, or hard work. It means to be in the midst of those things and still be calm in your heart.
Mm,
Claudia, like, she defined grace and peace in every meeting. She'd
mm.
be quiet when it was important. She just, like, I used to look at her and say, I want to be her when I grow up, type of
Yeah.
thing. And so I always, she was always like led me with such strong and great feedback when I would go to her on business related, personal, when work became too much for me at times, and having a family of four and wanting to be the executive, the worker, the mom, the all of the
A
things.
lot of
Um,
a lot of different roles, right?
a lot of different great roles. Yes, absolutely. So mentorship is so important. And now for me, I'm always honored when somebody reaches out to me and says, even if it's not a formal question of, will you be a mentor, but it's more of the, Julie, will you help me redefine myself? I want to reinvent myself. As you
Mm.
spoke about the individual who was in the arts and theaters and now in
Yeah,
wealth management.
Peter. Yeah.
Yeah, Peter. Hats off to Pete. He definitely redefined himself in so many ways, and I'm sure he hits the art and the science for sure with both of those fields. But at the end of the day, it helps me. It grounds me when I'm working with individuals. What's your next chapter? Where have
Oh
I fallen? Go ahead.
no, no, no. I'm saying. Oh, I love that. That's what I meant.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I always encourage people, again, getting back to the networking. Um, everybody has a level of fear,
Yeah.
and just reaching out to people and saying, can you help me with writing this resume? Can you help me with my value proposition? People ask me what my superpowers are, Julie. How do I define my superpowers? I sound like I'm being ego. So all of those different aspects, that fuels me. Working
Okay.
with others, it fuels me for sure.
So you open that up. Share with us your superpowers.
Oh, okay. Well, I would say,
Hold it 1 second. Let me. Darnell mentioned. He says, "I love reverse mentoring." You mentioned that early. Great way to improve yourself as a leader. So Darnell, thank you for listening in. Give us the
absolutely. So
superpowers
yeah, thank you for putting that
so we
point
can
out
go out
and,
and
and
change the
emphasizing
world.
it. So my superpowers, I would say, I mentioned the word perseverance. I know that's a descriptive. I, just persevering through and looking at, work can be hard, but
Hmm.
work can be fun. And it's the play hard, work hard, mantra.
Yeah.
I feel as though I always embody just the grit of, I grew up with my both of my parents work. They're very hard workers. The integrity of what working means, but also working with, I believe this, in that I want to sound as humble as possible, but just working hard, but also being kind,
Hmm.
um, and being that collaborative spirit,
Hmm.
and not looking hierarchical in, being a leader, I would
Hmm.
say. But I love to lead as a superpower from the front as well as from behind,
Okay.
and giving individuals the space, um, to, you know be in the category of one to what their superpowers are.
Mm.
I have a good intuition on people. And
Mhm.
so, one of the things I was thinking about before this call, and that comes with time, right? So I
Mhm.
do have time under my belt for that
Yeah.
intuition and talking and interviewing and meeting a lot of diversified individuals across the globe over the years. But as I mentioned earlier, everybody has a career story. Everybody has a career trajectory. On paper, your CV, your bio, your resume, great. All of the, everything that's on there. But when I interview or meet with someone, I put that to the side. Who is Ron as a person?
Oh.
Who are you? because that's what's going to set somebody up for success. When I was at
Mm.
Edelman, it was, in the culture, you had to always be an account executive plus, a CEO of Asia Pacific. You had to roll your sleeves up. Yes, everybody wants to be strategic as they get more tenured in their career, but you have to roll those sleeves up and kick the heels in. And so really finding out at the core is, coming in with, confidence, but not having, leave the ego at the door type of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And that's the intuition of who are they as a person. And then also being transparent, whether or not they'll fit, be a cultural ad. This is
Mm.
where you might work. This is where I don't see this. And really
Okay.
providing that straightforward feedback, I think is critical. So long-winded answer, and I'm not saying I'm some superwoman with all these superpowers, because you know everybody has superpowers.
No,
Everybody.
no, 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 no. Don't diminish it. You gave us some good thoughts there. Who are you? So let's take it through that angle, because if I'm ap- applying, or you bringing me in for a senior level job,
Mhm.
I've got the CV of success, and we don't talk about the CVs of failures, which is another area. How would you advise me to, people that are listening and maybe thinking about, how would you advise me to interface with that client? Technical skills, technical skills, technical
Yeah,
skills. What you said? You said soft skills. How do I present myself as a person?
great question. So this is always the advice that I provide.
Okay.
I'm going to go
Excuse me,
back to
folks.
this.
Excuse me. For people that's listening, she's the guru. She's gonna lay it out. Get your
Well,
pen and
here's,
paper. Be
and it's
ready to
simple. It's simple.
go ahead.
So if you, and this isn't for the executives either. This is for, the entry to mid to executive level. I always say to the individuals, you need to think about what will set you apart. You need to
Okay.
think about how you will be a cultural add to the organization. Take a look at your resume. At the top of your resume, do you have a synopsis of who you are? That's your
Hmm.
value proposition.
Mm.
You need to write your value proposition so it's a statement that when Mr. or Mrs. CEO looks at it, or VP of corporate comms takes a look at it, they read that. That's, a lot of times, unfortunately, they don't go through the entirety
Exactly.
of it, but
Yeah.
that's what's going to stand out. How do you write your value proposition? You start with writing your superpowers. You
Okay.
bullet your superpowers. Then you take those, you embed it into your value prop, and voila, you have it. And then
Mm.
that's your statement, along with some harder skills, adding in the core competencies. But if you are a person that you're always in the pursuit of excellence, you have the spirit of the collaborative spirit, and you're really being authentic and true to
Mm.
yourself in your what you're writing about you,
Yeah.
that's what you need to do. And that's my advice to everybody. Make it simple, but AI is, a lot of times people will say, I'm sending my resume into all these places and I'm connecting through LinkedIn. And, I feel like I'm getting kicked back with all these responses of, you know, thank you so much, but no.
But
Um,
no. Yeah.
and how do I get around AI for, just kicking me out perhaps because of certain keywords they're looking for? And that's where I say, when you put together an authentic, part to your CV or your resume at the top, that's your value proposition. But guess what? That also helps you when you get in front of, when you go to the
Yeah.
interview and you're meeting with, and you say, here's what sets me apart. Here is the value, my value prop that I bring to the
Oh
table,
wow.
and master that. So,
So when I did the pre in bringing you forward as it relates to your expertise masterclass, that's exactly what we're talking about. Because I think sometimes, and I know a lot of friends that have been hit and they've been laid off and those kind of things, they're trying to reposition themselves. And I say,
yep.
give me some success stories that you worked on. A client had your organization had issues, And how did you solve it? Walk me through that. Walk me through your thought process and all of that. And lots of times I get a blank stare. What is that? Well, I did this. No.
So when you say, I want to be sure, excuse me, I want to be sure that I answer this correctly. So when, people have been laid, so define some success stories of how folks have reinvented themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Something along those lines. Yeah.
honestly, there's so many different ways we can look at this. And what I generally tell people is, first and foremost, and I'm going to take this angle. If you have 15, 20 years of experience and you're in the land of, the unfortunate layoffs, so many people are, but you know what? You are unique to yourself. So it's affecting you.
Hmm.
Um, I always say to them, first and foremost, don't be being title agnostic. If you've been a senior vice president
Yeah.
at
I know.
company X, be
Yeah.
okay with a change of title. Be
Yeah.
okay with perhaps senior manager of. Sometimes, and I know the financial, being financially fit is important, and everybody, keeping the lights on and things of that nature. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, sometimes it may take a step back
Mm.
to that from a financial standpoint. If you are redirecting yourself into a new industry, something different, and be okay with that. Try
Taking the
not
hit.
to let it hit your confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
You know,
that's extremely important. I remember reading, and this is aging group, the 2008 calamity of the economy. And I remember reading an article in Fortune magazine about Greenwich, Connecticut, which is a very wealthy zip code.
hmm
And the minister of the church put together a group that they would meet with all these senior executives, senior vice presidents, CEOs that had all lost their jobs. And he kind of wrote an article based on it. He said that the challenge that they were facing was getting beyond the title they had inside of an organization, because they were
exactly.
an SVP, and I will only go for SVPs, the CEOs, or whatever it is, these initials behind it. And one
Right.
young lady told me, she said, I don't look for initials. I said, what do you mean initials? She said, I don't want a VP or a SVP. I said, oh, I never thought of that. She said, I just want to do good work, and I want to make a difference, and I want to be
Yes.
happy with what I'm doing, and I don't want to work 80 hours a week.
You know what? You just nailed it there, Ron, in that, that purpose driven work, really taking a step back and being honest with yourself. What's important to you? You know, I tell some of the younger population, your first, second, third jobs, you may not love. You get your feet into the door, you start your career trajectory, you're always learning. But here's another important thing. When I've seen individuals reinvent themselves, and I've seen the success of people, however we want to define it, because we can define success in so many different ways. But at the end of the day, when people think of a jungle gym analogy, when one is open to really taking your career and moving into different, the jungle gym and how that is in the backyard with kids playing on it, there's all different shapes, sizes. But when you're okay to go into, maybe I'll just use Edelman as the example. Maybe I'll start with, in government, in the DC office, and then I have an interest in influencer marketing, and then I know health is a passion of mine. But being okay with that fluency of really kind of going around that jungle gym, and what that does for a person, and your knowledge, and being that student of the business, you're reinventing yourself
Yeah.
before you even realize you're reinventing yourself. You're
Mm,
just
mm.
adding so much to your portfolio of knowledge, which is phenomenal. But I'll also get back to the point of, some of the success stories that I've seen, and it's just, you just sit back and you just smile. It's seeing people that they've been. I'll use an example of a woman I just placed with a client of mine to lead a New York office for this firm. She had the global titles at an agency. She
Hmm.
had a lot of the really big titles, and where a lot of, unfortunately, and it's starting to go on an uptick in shift, but a lot of them are in transformation, right? With a lot of the mergers and acquisitions and the Omnicoms and IPGs of the world, et cetera. So there's a level of uncertainty. So when I first started speaking with her, she said, Julie, I want to be challenged. I want to work with good people. I want to have a work-life balance, however
Mm,
you define that as well. I want to work hard because I still have that in my belly, because at times, sometimes stakeholders or organizations perceive that if somebody's been working for 20, 25, 30 years, that the energy reserves, as we spoke about earlier,
yeah,
may not be as strong as what they once were. Wrong. So she just said, I'm looking for different, but I'm okay, like, if there is somewhat of a title cut, a pay cut, because I'm at a place in my life right now that other things are important. So she
yeah.
went through this process of really taking a look at that self-examination, right,
Mm,
in what she's looking for, what's affordable across the board. And she's thrilled with this opportunity, and I felt so great. It was just a testament to
yeah,
that, what you said before, like,
yeah,
she didn't go into it, I have to be this global head of.
yeah. I got to get those initials on the backside. So, you talk about Brooke, your daughter. My daughter is a global marketing director, and she and I have these conversations, and it's so enlightening for me because I'm talking to a different generation of a workforce, and that realize that it's totally different. They're looking for something totally different than me. She said, "Dad, I'm not looking. I'm not." She was the one that gave me the initials. She said, "I'm not looking for initials. I want to do good work. I'm gonna leave at 5, and I'm gonna do what I do, and I want my life outside of that." I said, "Okay." I didn't quite know how to respond to that because I said, "Okay, that's cool."
It is. I have to say, I have a few examples like that, and it is a different generation, but the way they work and live, meaning our daughters, our family, my son, like, it is it is the right way. It
Yeah.
is the I remember one time I was talking about, you know, suggesting sending a follow up to something, and it was relayed back to me that it's Friday at 5:30. I'll do it Monday morning, and everything in me was like, oh, what mom would do is I would be writing this over the weekend or right now.
I'm gonna send it before Monday.
Right. But I have to tell you, I sat back through some of those conversations and learning about, what is important to that demographic in my
Yeah,
family,
yeah,
and
yeah,
others that I've mentored. And I admire it.
yeah.
And then I sit back and say, I wish I was more like that. And I need to learn to be more like that because it is respectful.
Yeah, but that was a different era.
I know.
It was a different era. And if you had that mindset, you would still be at entry level. I'll leave it at that. But I want to, as we begin the process of closing out, I want to thank you for making the time for us. And we've been going back and forth on dates and getting all of this set up. But I've
Yes.
admired your career. Everyone listening, follow Julie. Interesting opportunities that she posts. She's executive search and she does high level stuff, the initials sometimes, but she can make a difference. So follow her as much as you can. And one of the questions I want to ask you in closing,
Yes.
what closing thoughts would you like to leave the people that are listening in today? If you could give me kind of a quick synopsis of what you're.
Here's my quick synopsis, because I actually wrote down some things, but this is, I am going to read this because I don't want to miss any of this, because I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Always believe in yourself. If you have the itch to start your own business, go for it. Lean in. Give yourself the runway to launch your dreams. I feel like I'm going to have happy tears right now, Ron.
That's
I
okay.
cry easy.
That's
What I've
okay.
always instilled in my children: face everything and rise. You've got this. Never look back. And I'll close with the best is yet to come.
I love that. I love that. This is why
Thank
Brooke came in and said what she said as a result of that. So thank you so much. I need you to hang on before we close up. For the folks that's listening, every Friday we have interesting conversations around people's careers and what Julie brought to the table. This is what a lot of people are looking for and struggling in careers today. So thank you so much. Every Friday, if it's Friday, it is the CEO series at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. 5 p.m. in Dubai for all of my Middle Eastern friends, which I'll be back to next week. So thank you
Thank you.
so much. And I'll hang on as we close out.
Thank you.
Take the CEO series with you anywhere, anytime. All episodes are now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and major streaming platforms. It's not just an interview. It's a masterclass in leadership.